My name is Natasha Williams, Chair to the Committee on Civil and Human Rights. Today we will be voting on proposed intro 632A, sponsored by my colleague, Majority Leader Keith Powers. If passed, this bill would prohibit housing discrimination on the basis of criminal history. It is no secret that finding housing in New York City is not an easy task. For the average New Yorker, this process is stressful and financially taxing. Those with prior justice involvement have to go through the same process, but with an added concern of not knowing if their record will be the reason a landlord rejects their application, even if they meet all required criteria. In housing, discriminatory practices related to background checks often manifest when landlords use blanket policies, such as automatically disqualifying applicants with certain criminal records. This disproportionately affects minority communities, perpetuating housing disparities. The Housing and Urban Development estimates that around 25% of Americans have a criminal record, impacting their ability to secure housing. A study published this year by the Data Collaborative for Justice at John Jay College found that nearly 2.2 million people have a criminal record of some kind, nearly 80% of which identify as Black or Latino. The study also found that almost 2/3 of people with convictions have not had a new conviction in over 10 years. And while a statute exists that all New Yorkers to apply for their records to be sealed, depending on the type of conviction, less than 1% of those who are eligible have been able to successfully get their records sealed. Many of those individuals have families they are hoping to live with or provide for, but the struggle to find housing can be a major roadblock, even if their loved ones do not have records of their own. A survey conducted by the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights found that 1 in 10 formerly incarcerated persons reported that their families were evicted when their loved one returned home from prison. The same report found that 79% of participants were denied housing due to their record or the record of a loved one, showing the effects of this type of housing discrimination even on those without a criminal history. Finding stable, long-term housing is one of the most important factors for justice-involved individuals to successfully rebuild their lives and rejoin society. With this bill, I hope we can help many New Yorkers looking to turn their lives around and start fresh. The last hearing on this bill was quite contentious, and all of that didn't go in vain. I'm happy we are passing this bill today. I'd like to thank my staff and committee staff for their work on putting this vote together, and also thank the Majority Leader for his leadership, and I'll now pass it over to him for some remarks on his bill.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, and thank you to the Chair for giving me an opportunity to give a brief statement on Intro 632A, the Fair Chance for Housing Act, which the committee is voting on here today. I want to thank the Chair and 30 colleagues who have signed on as co-sponsors to this legislation. As the Chair noted, right now, most landlords are free to discriminate against potential tenants who have a criminal record of any kind, no matter how minor or no matter how long ago. Any New Yorker who's done their time and is working hard to rebuild their life deserves a second chance. It's a principle that many of us live our lives on. It's time that our laws reflect that, and with today's passage of Intro 632A, they finally will. Stable housing is the foundation of a stable life, and without access to housing, formerly incarcerated people struggle to find employment, maintain their mental health and physical health, go back to school, and take care of their families. Roughly 750,000 New Yorkers have a conviction history, the vast majority of whom are people of color, and they and their families face a lifetime of obstacles to housing. By removing barriers to housing, people are better able to support themselves and their families, lowering recidivism, and making our community safer. The version of this bill we're voting on today is a culmination of months of ongoing conversations and feedback we received from advocates, housing providers, and industry stakeholders. And I mean this with no exaggeration. This negotiation went to the very last minute. I'm sorry to the staff. I'm proud of the bill that we're voting on today, and I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to everyone, the stakeholders and the advocates who worked diligently to help get us here today, including the 100+ member organizations in the Fair Chance for Housing Coalition. In particular, I'd like to shout out Lily Shapiro and Andre Ward from the Fortune Society and Allison Wilkie from Community Voices Heard for their hard work on this legislation also until the very end. I want to thank Speaker Adams for her leadership. I want to thank Committee Chair Natasha Williams for her support and her thoughtful recommendations throughout this process. I want to thank the central staff and the committee staff who worked very hard on this very important piece of legislation. And I want to give a very, very big shout out to Ben and Haley from my office who are here today, who worked for months, maybe years at this point, on this legislation. I want to extend a very big shout out to them for working diligently to make sure that every single detail was combed through and was attended to. I'm very, very excited the council is moving this bill forward today, and as the chair said, happy that none of this went in vain, and we worked very hard to help New Yorkers here today. I would ask all my colleagues to vote in support of it, and want to thank you in advance for your support. Thank you.
All right, now I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Good morning. Good morning. Williams.
I proudly vote aye.
Salamanca. Joseph. Marte.
Of course, I vote aye. Congrats, Keith.
Richardson Jordan.
I vote aye.
With a vote of 0 in the negative and no abstentions, item has been adopted by the committee.
I'll hold it open for a few more minutes.